Are you recording? I would
Yes,
love to post.
I just pushed this button.
Wonderful.
Yes. Okay, welcome everyone to the fall of 2021 Natural Science Colloquium Series. So today, the speaker is Takese McKenzie. So let me introduce her a little bit, and then I'll let her give you a wonderful talk. So Takese grew up in the beautiful island of Jamaica and came to US in 2016 to pursue her undergraduate studies at the University of Houston downtown. Takese is familiar to many of us, especially those who are in the UHD Scholars Academy Scholars Academy, because Takese served as a peer leader first and then senior peer leader for 2.5 years. Besides being active with the Scholars Academy, she also worked as a supplemental instructor for general biology courses and engaged with undergraduate research on and off campus from her sophomore year. All of this were part of her strategy for the successful transition into a graduate program in neuroscience at the MD Anderson UT Health Graduate School of Biomedical Sciences right after graduation from UHD, without having to take a gap year. So Takese is now in the second year of her PhD program. We're very pleased to have her back with us and share her academic path today. Our hope is that you learn from her success and experiences and use them to guide your own career path. So before I give the floor to her, I would like everyone to please mute yourself. And if you have any questions, please feel free to put them in a chat. And since Takese is really known to a lot of us, and if you want to ask questions during her talk, she said you're welcome to. Otherwise, we'll try to moderate any questions or comments you might have at the end. Thank you all for coming, and Takese, it's all yours.
Okay, thank you, Dr. King, for that wonderful introduction. And also I'm thankful for the opportunity to share my experience and transitioning from undergrad to graduate school without a gap year. And I hope my students, you find this helpful. Okay, so Dr. King already gave a nice introduction. So as she said, I'm from Jamaica. I'm an international student, and I graduated from UHD last year with a Bachelor of Science in Biology. So currently I'm a PhD student at MD Anderson UT Health in the neuroscience program, and I'm looking to graduate in the next 3 to 4 years, it all depends. And my research is focused on the role of these small lipid molecules called prostaglandins in demyelination, and my long-term goal is to become an independent academic research scientist. So you might be wondering, as a PhD student, what do I do on a daily basis? So just like you, I take classes. I keep up with the published literature. So I read papers that are related to my research interests, also perform experiments. And since my project is focused on using mouse models, I routinely check up on my mice. And most importantly, design and plan research and experiments, and also discuss my results with my research mentor along with other members of the lab. So the whole process of being a PhD student, it trains you, or it's training me to become both a critical thinker and an independent scientist. Sorry, let me just use the laser. Okay, so I just wanted to expound more on the research that I'm doing here. So my research is focused on a particular disease known as demyelinating diseases, which is characterized by the loss of myelin. So if you're not familiar, myelin is an essential component of the central nervous system. It provides insulation to neurons, and it helps them to propagate their electric signal. And it's produced by cells in the central nervous system called oligodendrocytes and the peripheral nervous system called Schwann cells. So the disease caused by the loss of myelin are known as demyelinating diseases, and these have various effects. So first, they lead to neurodegeneration, cognitive dysfunction, along with motor deficits. So one of the most common demyelinating disease is multiple sclerosis. And currently there are no effective therapeutic drugs to target these disease. However, treatments have been developed that have been focused on curbing the attack from the immune system and also reducing insults by oxidative stress. However, these current therapeutics have come upon certain setbacks because eventually persons who do get these treatments, they eventually progress to become, the demyelination progresses, and none of these therapies actually promote remyelination. So my research is focused on identifying a new therapeutic target for demyelinating diseases. And this therapeutic target is an enzyme called lipocalin prostaglandin desynthetase, or LPDGS. So there are three main reasons why we think this is a potential target for these diseases. The first is its abundance. So LPDGS is highly abundant in the central nervous system. It is actually the second most abundant protein in your cerebral spinal fluid and is highly expressed by the myelinating cells of your central nervous system called oligodendrocytes. And more importantly, we have found that the expression of this protein is downregulated in both mouse and human models of demyelination. And it has this enzymatic function where it produces a particular prostaglandin called 15-DPGJ2. And this prostaglandin can act as ligands for transcription factors that regulate the synthesis of myelin genes. So as I mentioned before, we found that LPDGS is downregulated in our mouse model of demyelination. So this mouse model is called the Quakin mouse model of demyelination, where the loss of this protein Quakin leads to demyelination. And we also collected lesions from multiple sclerosis patients, and we did. So for here, this expression refers to the RNA expression of LPDGS. So in the lesions of multiple sclerosis patients, these are the areas of the brain or the spinal cord where you have demyelination. We also found that there is reduced expression of LPDGS compared to normal patients. So overall, my experiments are focused on this hypothesis that LPDGS regulates myelination through specific transcription factors. And in regulating that transcription factor, it promotes both lipid metabolism and myelin homeostasis, and also prevents the damage to myelin caused by reactive oxygen species. And to address this, I am currently developing or establishing a genetic mouse model of LPDGS. So this is the LPDGS knockout mouse model. And I plan to use various molecular techniques to show whether the loss of LPDGS leads to the decrease in this expression of specific myelin enzymes. Okay. So after I've completed my PhD, I plan to stay in academia. So I plan to move on to getting a postdoctoral training and eventually establish my own independent research lab to continue studying demyelinating diseases with the hope that one day I can identify a really nice protein and help in the development of novel therapies to treat neurodegeneration and also demyelination. Okay, so that's more about me. So since I'm not really familiar with a lot of students here, I would like to get to know you more. So I will be having a poll everywhere question. So I will type the link in the chat. Okay. So can you see the poll everywhere? Can everyone see the poll everywhere?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So you can either, I want to find a way to copy the link, but you can either text Takese McKenzie 689 to 223 to join. So let me know if that works.
I have typed it in there. Hopefully it works.
Okay. Okay, nice. Are you waiting on some more responses? No? Okay. Interesting. Okay, so we don't have any freshman or sophomore year, so most of you are juniors and seniors, all right? And my next question is, what is your interest? Are you interested in going to graduate school, pursuing a master's degree, PhD, or are you interested in professional schools such as medical or dental school? Are you able to see the next question for the poll everywhere?
I can't see the next question. I'm still on the.
Yeah, same.
What you
Okay,
meant. Sorry.
all right. How about now?
Yes, I can see it.
Okay, wonderful. Graduate school, medical school, okay. Half and half. Okay, so most of you are interested in professional schools, and we have some persons interested in graduate school. All right, good. So I wanted to know that so that as I go through my presentation, I can emphasize on areas that will be more helpful to you depending on what stage of your undergraduate career you are, and also what you're interested in for what career path you're interested in. Okay, so for my presentation, I'll go over like the definition of a gap year, as the whole theme of my presentation is to help you to understand how I avoided taking a gap year in my transition to graduate school. I'll also go over the benefits of taking a gap year, disadvantages, and more importantly, the presentation will be focused on my experience. So why I plan on not taking a gap year, how it was beneficial to me to not take one, and what I did exactly year by year to ensure that I got into graduate school without a gap year. Okay, so we have one more poll everywhere. So what is your definition of a gap year? So in this, you can like write a phrase or a single word. Break, okay. Relaxing, graduating. Okay, nice. So let me just wait a bit more. Partying. Okay, I think most of you have gotten in your answer. So let's go over school. Okay, so gain experience. Some of you are interested in partying. Oh, sorry. Let's just turn on that light. Sorry about that. Relax. I guess taking entrance test, studying. So essentially a gap year can be anything you want it to be. Like the formal definition is just a year that you take off after undergrad before going on to your next area of study or the next level of study. And you can take it to do anything that you want to do. Some of you have suggested using it to be productive, such as studying, And while some of you think it's good to take a gap year to relax, and I mean, depending on like, I guess your personality and what you value, some of those things will definitely be beneficial to you. So there are several reasons why people take a gap year, and I think you have listed some of them in your answers. One of them is to save money. Let's say if you're going to medical school, maybe that is something that you would consider doing to improve health. Find work experience. Let's say in undergrad, you didn't have enough work experience to substantiate your application. This is what you would do. Maybe you need some time to figure out what graduate schools you want to apply to, what medical schools you want to apply to. So a gap year can also be useful with that. Maybe you want to develop new skills. I don't know, learn how to program, learn a new language, or you want to explore new areas that you have not had the time to do in undergrad. So these are all valid reasons for taking a gap year. But is a gap year really necessary? You know, what if you could get to your dream career faster without taking a gap year? And if you take just 1 year after undergrad before going on to your next stage, how productive will you actually be? And how meaningful would that gap year be? Will it significantly contribute to your career path, or will it not? And more importantly, what if you can achieve all you need to while in undergrad? What if you can fulfill all the requirements for graduate school, medical school, while you're in undergrad? Then after undergrad, you just move along to the next stage. So if you're thinking that maybe a gap year is not necessary, the rest of my presentation will be very helpful for you. So one of the most important things about avoiding a gap year is planning. So since most of you are interested in medical school or graduate school, let's do an overview of the timeline of the application for medical school and graduate school. So here I have an example of a medical school timeline. It's kind of similar to a graduate school timeline with just a few changes, which I'll explain. So as a freshman, we all come in, meet with our advisors, take classes, we'll figure out the major, what we're going to major in, classes that are required for those majors, and then start taking classes. We also gain some experience along the way, volunteering, doing research, and more importantly, throughout our entire undergraduate career, we ensure that we maintain good grades. And throughout freshman year, sophomore year, the process repeats itself, classes, experience, and in the third year of undergrad is where things get more intense. This is where you would take your MCAT if you're planning to go to medical school, or if you're planning to go to graduate school, this is where you would take your GRE. That is if the GRE is required for the graduate programs you're applying to. And then finally, in the fourth year is actually when you apply. You prepare everything in advance so that you can apply in your fourth year of undergrad to medical school or graduate school. And then you, later on in your fourth year, you get your interviews and finally choose which school you want to attend. So I have one last poll everywhere. Okay, so looking over the timeline, what is one of the most important things that you've noticed so far as it relates to planning and everything that you need to do? Okay, GPA. That's it? Research, okay. Begin since first year. Yes. Consistency. Yeah, so you have all touched on some important points, okay? Preparation. Apply on June 1st. That is for medical school applications. Okay, good. So you've all touched on some important points. First, planning is key and your grades do matter and you need to get the relevant experience as you go along. And more importantly, you actually have 3 years to prepare your applications since you apply in your senior year, so you can't say since I'm planning my senior year, I'm preparing in my senior year. You need to get everything prepared in advance before that senior year. So next I'll go over why I planned on not taking a gap year and the yearly steps I took as a freshman, sophomore, and junior to avoid a gap year. So first, my reasons for avoiding a gap year. So throughout undergrad, I became certain that I wanted to pursue a PhD specifically in neuroscience. So since I was certain of the career path that I wanted to take, I kind of didn't have a reason to go for a gap year, because sometimes you use a gap year to figure out what you truly want. And also I thought to myself, what if I could actually get into graduate school on the first try, on the first time applying? Well, I might as well take the chance and apply, right? Instead of doubting myself, saying maybe I wouldn't get in. And for the advantages, it provides a faster route of achieving my dream of becoming an independent neuroscientist. So I'm technically a year closer to achieving that dream without a gap year. And since I graduated in 2020, which was the year of the pandemic and the lockdown, I wasn't set back by the pandemic. Because if let's say I'd taken a gap year after graduating. So in 2020, after graduating, I took a gap year. Technically, that gap year would not have been beneficial to me because we were in a pandemic and most things were closed. Let's say I wanted more research experience, I might not be able to find those opportunities because of the pandemic. So those were two main benefits for me. So next, I will go over what I did yearly to avoid taking a gap year, beginning as a freshman. So coming in as a freshman as an international student, my major was in biology, so definitely I was interested in the medical field, but I wasn't really certain of whether I wanted to pursue medical school or graduate school. So as a freshman, I became informed of the requirements for both medical and graduate school, and to see what those requirements had in common, to see that, okay, research experience, that is something that's required for both, so I can go ahead and start doing that. And more importantly, in my freshman year, I explored the different opportunities available. So through Scholars Academy, I had the chance to do research with Dr. Zhang in the second semester of my freshman year. And our research was focused on identifying cobalt hydroxide films. So this research experience was beneficial to me because it was kind of before my chemistry classes, and it gave me more context for my chemistry classes. And more importantly, I had the chance to be trained and also tutor in the PLTL lab that is operated by Ms. Nakamura. And in my freshman year, I also took the time to ensure that I found mentors and productive friends. And because I was a part of Scholars Academy, it provided a really good environment for me to grow and to find these this group of people who will help me along my journey. So this is actually a picture of our Scholars Academy orientation in 2016. See, there's Dr. Parker and Ms. Nakamura. But I guess I
Where
can't.
are you? Where are you?
I don't know. But I was there.
Teasing, teasing.
So Scholars Academy definitely provided me with the opportunity to find these really good friends that we had like similar thinking and we had similar interests, and also provided good mentors such as faculty mentors and peer mentors to guide me in my journey as I began my undergraduate career. So in freshman year, one of my philosophy was that I wanted to be a part of everything. So every opportunity that presented itself, I joined. And I think this was really good because if I'd say, okay, I am just coming in, let me just, relax, I wouldn't have, let's say, for example, had the opportunity to do research or even started tutoring in the PLTL. And those initial opportunities, as you will see further on, they help to direct me into other more beneficial opportunities too. So in sophomore year, I became more convinced that I wanted to pursue a PhD. And so I started to research the requirements for the PhD programs. And I also gained some leadership, again, taking advantage of the opportunities presented. I gained leadership experience both in Scholars Academy as a peer mentor and then as a senior peer mentor. And I also gained some leadership and tutoring experience from being a supplemental instruction leader. And leadership experience is required. I mean, it is a good thing to have on your CV. It shows that you're involved in the community that you're in. And even, let's say at this point, I was still not sure if a PhD or pursue an MD, a leadership experience is something that's beneficial for both of these career paths. So in my sophomore year, I also took the time to refine my research interest. So freshman year, I started doing research with Dr. Zhang. That was more chemistry related research. So as I progressed through my classes, specifically my biology classes, and also went to seminars and so on, I became more interested in neuroscience. So then I went to pursue neuroscience related research, and that's when I started doing research with Dr. King. And our research was mostly focused on analyzing the locomotive activity of fruit flies and to see how specific ADHD candidate genes could affect those locomotive activities. Towards the end of my sophomore year is when I also started seeking out outside research opportunities, such as applying for summer internships. And I applied to several. And one of them that I was accepted into was the Baylor College of Medicine SMART program. And there I am. And these are some of the really great friends that I met during my time there. So at Baylor, this was a really good experience because they provided a GRE workshop. So at the time, the GRE was required for several of the PhD programs that I was interested in. So this was very beneficial. And also I got exposure to what graduate school life would be or could be by speaking with graduate students, and also just getting a lot of hands-on experience in the lab. My research mentor at Baylor College of Medicine was Dr. Fred Piera, and we focused on seeing how this antioxidant nanoparticle could enhance hearing or restore hearing loss. And I just have random philosophies throughout, or I think this may be the last one, but throughout sophomore year, one thing that I always said to myself was that I should believe in myself and aim for the highest. And I think this is important because you really don't know your potential and how much you can achieve unless you actually apply yourself towards those things. And for example, for the summer research internships, like in applying, I was like, I'm a sophomore, most of the students who get into these are seniors or rising seniors, juniors, and so on. But I still was like, if I apply, maybe I could get in. So for a lot of you students who are thinking about summer research opportunities or other opportunities, just go ahead and apply, because you never know, like you could get in. And in my junior year is when I began taking most of my upper level science classes, organic chemistry, and so on. And this was also where I took the GRE. So I had been preparing for the GRE in the summer of my sophomore year. So at Baylor, they had like a GRE workshop. So I took that along with personalized studying plans to study for the GRE. And then I took the GRE. And I also used my junior year to increase my research experience by continuing to do research at UHD with Dr. King. And also through my research with Dr. King, I also had the opportunity to go ahead and do research at MD Anderson in the summer experience program. And in my junior year is also when I started applying to and presenting at several different conferences. And these conferences were very beneficial because they helped me to improve my networking skills and my scientific communication skills. And I'm really thankful for Scholars Academy, which provided me the opportunity to attend these conferences. And my last conference was in 2019. And well, the last conference I presented at was actually the first conference that I actually won a poster presentation award for. So in junior year, also what I did was because at this point, I was certain that I was going to apply to graduate school. So I took the time out to apply to create a list of the graduate schools that I'm interested in. And you might be asking, okay, so how do you know which graduate schools you want to apply to? Because there's so many graduate schools in the US, right? Even in Texas. So by attending different conferences, they have, and also the Scholars Academic Graduate School and Internship Fair, you get exposed to different graduate schools and what they apply. So because you get hands-on exposure or first-hand exposure to those schools, you kind of narrow down your list to say, okay, I'm interested in this school because first, they have research that interests me. Secondly, they provide opportunities that will be beneficial for my growth as a student. Or thirdly, that is somewhere I can see myself living for the next 4 to 5 years. So this is an example of how I created my list. So I had an Excel sheet, I had the graduate schools, as I was applying to the dates applications were open, dates application closed, application fee, and the date I applied. So the date I applied is not here, but I did apply. And in my junior year is also when I took the time to draft my personal statement, research statement, and CV. So if you're looking to apply into graduate schools, especially PhD programs, these are 3 essential things that every graduate school will require. And I don't know if you've heard the saying that writing is essentially rewriting. So if you want to get something written really well, you have to start writing it early or drafting it early so you can go back and revise and revise. And for my graduate school applications, I also needed letters of recommendation. So this is where I also started identifying and asking faculty for letters of recommendation. And finally, in my senior year of fall is when I completed my applications. And one of the most important things about completing your applications is reviewing them. So never submit an application without having someone else or having more than one person look over it. Or rather, when you think your application is complete, send it to someone for them to review it for you. Because sometimes you may not see like small errors, but other persons, because they have different perspectives, or because it's just like fresh to them, they can point out errors and also give you tips on how to improve your application. And finally, I submitted my application. And then after submitting the applications, I think I applied to around 13 graduate schools. Most of them were in Texas, and there are a few outside of Texas. And after applying, I received interviews from 6 graduate schools. So after receiving those interviews, one of the first thing I ensured that I did was to prepare for those interviews. Because, you know, when you apply to graduate school and they send you an invitation for an interview, that shows that they're interested in you being a part of the graduate school, but it's not a surety that you will be accepted into the graduate school. So preparation is key. So in preparing, I had mock interview questions, and I also researched the background of my interviewers so that I could ask them meaningful questions, and I also could anticipate the question they asked me. And finally, I attended the interviews, and these are some pictures from some of the interviews I attended here at UT Health, UT Southwestern, and at Notre Dame. And on completing the interviews, I received several acceptances, and then it was down to the point of, okay, which school do I want to go to? So the first thing in choosing which school was, I was interested in neurodegenerative diseases. So I looked and say, are the faculty doing research that excites me? You know, are these faculty someone that I could see myself working with? And then secondly was the support that the schools provided for their students. And looking at the support, I could say, okay, this is somewhere I could see myself growing for the next 4 to 5 years. And also, I think something that was important to me was location. Like, I didn't really want to be in the snow, so Texas it was. And finally, for senior year, even after completing receiving my acceptances, completing my graduation requirements was also essential because I couldn't move on to graduate school without having my degree, right? So I ensured that I completed my classes and got good grades in those classes. So I think for senior year, one of the challenges for me in attending these interviews, so for example, I had 6 interviews and every one of them was at a different week. So that's like almost 1.5 months of going away, right? So the challenge was like balancing my classes to ensure that, okay, I keep up with studying and keep up with the class material, even though I'll be away for like the weekend. And the weekend is where I would usually like, consolidate my class material or study. So what really helped me to do that was like time management and ensuring that, for example, when let's say I was going out of state, like I use the time on, let's say, the plane or the time in the airport to review my class material and also study. So it's important to like ensure that you're still on point with your classes, even at the end of your undergraduate career. And finally, I enjoyed my last semester, even though it was spent in lockdown, it was still okay. So overall, some important points for you in transitioning from undergrad to graduate school. Don't try to do it all by yourself. I think at UHD, there are so many people around who are willing to help you. And the most important thing for you to do is ask for help when you need it and get advice from other people. Don't be afraid to ask. I don't past students who have already gone on to the careers that you're interested in. Ask them, how did you get there? Or ask your faculty mentors or faculty members, like, what are some advice that you would have for me? Or this is where I'm at. How would you suggest that I approach applying to medical school, graduate school? What are some tips that you would have? And as I mentioned before, never submit an application without having other people overview it, because having other people look over or review your application can help to strengthen your application a lot. And I can say this from experience because after creating my applications, my CV, personal statement, research statement, I sent it out to like all the persons who I've asked for letters of recommendation so that they could review it and give me feedback. And I'm very thankful for the feedback that I received from them because it was very helpful in refining my applications. And finally, create good relationships. The people you have around you are the ones who are going to help you get to the next stage of your career. More importantly, you are going to need letters of recommendation. You're going to need advice. So if you don't create good relationships, you won't have the support you need to get to where you need to go. And so you've seen my presentation, seen all that I've done. So you might be asking yourself, what are the next steps for you? So one question I would tell you to ask yourself is, what stage of planning are you at? Most of you are juniors and seniors. I would say create a list like, I'm interested in medical school. How many requirements have I completed that can get me to medical school? Or where am I at in completing those requirements? What do I need to do in order to ensure that I've completed all the requirements by the time I graduate or by the time the applications open? And also seek out helpful resources and guidance. And I can attest to this that UHE has a lot of helpful resources. So I took advantage of these resources in my time to help me transition to graduate school. First is the natural science advising. Most of you are part of the natural science department, so you have access to advising. ensure, so advising, they're not just for like guiding you into which classes to take. They can also help you to see what are the requirements for medical school, graduate school, and also give you some direction into what schools you could possibly apply to. Next is a career development office. I use this very extensively with reviewing my CV, resume, and they also offer mock interviews. So that could be very beneficial when you do get an offer to do an interview with the school you have applied to. And you can also get support from your Scholars Academy peer mentors if you're a part of Scholars Academy or other peers. And more importantly, faculty mentors or just your regular faculty, they are very valuable resources because they have been through the process. Let's say you want to go to graduate school, they've been through the process of getting a PhD, so they can guide you on that. And then there are outside resources of UHD, such as conferences, seminars, symposiums. These offer a wealth of information. For example, from conferences, you can not only network, but you can get an idea of the research that you're interested in or get more information about the research you're interested in. You can see what different graduate schools offer, and also you can meet different people through seminars, symposiums, or seminars and symposium can help you to tailor your applications as well. So thank you for listening to my talk. I really hope it was helpful. And if you have any questions, you can unmute yourself, type them in the chat. And I'll be really happy to answer any questions you have, if it's either related to currently, like my experience as a graduate student now, my experience as a student when I was at UHD, or just general questions.
Thank you so much, Takese. So before everyone else, I like to ask you a question. So I noticed that you're, listing the 3 required documents normally for graduate school. One is a research statement. So I think that's something probably most of us are not familiar with. And, since you have done a lot of research in your undergraduate time, so is that a research statement based on what you have done during your undergraduate or something that you would like to do in the future? So can you maybe give us a little bit more information on that? Otherwise, I think a lot of people will feel a little scared right now because they haven't done so much research as you have.
So it depends. For me, because I did a lot of research. Well, first, the question or the prompt for the research statement asks you to summarize your research experience. So for me, I would summarize like the research I did with you and off campus. So first, exactly what I did. What were the results of, let's say, the experiments or the research I performed, and how was it meaningful, not just to like science itself, but meaningful to my development as a future researcher. But for students who don't have a lot of research experience, maybe you could also incorporate like the research you would be interested in doing. I think that can help as well. But I mean, to supplement your research statement or make it compelling, you would need to get research experience. Oh, I think you're muted.
Sorry, there's a question in the chat. I don't know whether you can see or not. If you don't mind, I'm going to moderate them for you. So the first question is, on your journey, what was a major roadblock that you may have had, and how did you get over it?
I think as an international student, I think at first I was a bit discouraged because I think a lot of schools mostly accept domestic students. I mean, for obvious reasons, right? Because of funding and so on. So that made me a bit discouraged, but I think how I overcame that was I was just like, maybe I have a chance of getting in. And a more tangible roadblock was that I had to take my GRE twice, so I've not been perfect in everything. And I think when I first took my GRE and I wasn't satisfied with my score, I was a bit discouraged to say, am I smart enough? And so on. But overcoming that was, well, in part because I had other things to supplement my application, such as my GPA, my research experience, leadership experience. And also there are other schools who did not require the GRE. So I have like some a safety net there.
I
But
see.
I think my experience to undergrad was very traditional. I ensured that I kept like on point with everything. Oops, the light keeps going off.
Right. And I think that transitions into another question perfectly well. How were you able to balance the planning, the school, and the work throughout your undergrad?
So time management is key. I had a schedule every semester and I tried to follow that schedule on a daily basis. There would be like things that I need to get done, tasks that I need to do. For example, for research, I would need to go in for a certain amount of time. So I would like, okay, I need to do this. But to be honest, it did get overwhelming because of my involvement in so many things, I feel like I was unable to like give my full dedication to some of the things that I was really interested in. For example, I was a part of Scholars Academy as a peer mentor. I was a supplemental instruction leader, and also I did research. So sometimes some of those time in those would overlap, and I would have to like take away time from one thing, for example, take away some of my time from research, dedicate to other things, as well as studying for my classes. So I think having good time management, but also don't limit yourself. Don't say, I don't think I will have enough time, so I won't do this. Because I think it was beneficial for me to be involved in all of those things because they really helped to supplement my application.
Thank you. So for the next question, it's really about any adjustment or something you had to change after you went to graduate school from undergrad. Can you maybe tell us a little bit more about what's new in the graduate school, like what you had to do to change in order to either fit into a different environment, a different schedule, or what's different there?
I think a lot of things are different. I think first is my mindset. So I'm a person where I like things that are fixed or I like things that are predictable. But with graduate school, things are not predictable. And let's say you in undergrad, like you have your labs, right? And you perform a certain experiment and you get a certain result. But in graduate school, first, you have to figure out how to perform the experiment. Like usually in undergrad, like the experiment is already set up for you, you just need to actually do it. But here is more thinking, like, how do I actually perform this? And then the results that you get, sometimes they're not interpretable or they're very different from what you expected. I think also another thing I had to adjust to was like not rushing. I feel like in undergrad, I was always thinking about the next step, preparing my applications, getting good grades, the exam, and so on. But in graduate school, it's more like, I take the time to like think things through. And it's important to think things through because first, you have a good amount of time to actually think about things. And you need to take that time because if you don't take that time, then you won't plan effectively. And if you don't plan effectively, then you won't get like your desired results.
Great. Yes, thanks for sharing that with us. And for those of us who have been in graduate school, we know exactly what you meant. So I have another question for you, if you don't mind sharing with us. So one of the successes that you really mentioned was your relationship with everyone around you, either mentors or the other students who share the same passion as you. And then you were able to secure letters of recommendations or asking people to help you with all those applications. So usually, we do have a little hesitancy approaching the faculty, right, to do those extra things. And also some people don't really know how to, get good letters of recommendations. So could you maybe tell us more about, what are some of the important things that we need to consider, or what to do, what not to do when we try to approach that?
Yeah, I think, well, to get a good letter of recommendation, the person has to know you, right? You had to have spent time developing that relationship with the person. And I think, well, Dr. Kang, you are one of the persons who gave me letter of recommendations. And I think, for example, starting research with you, taking all your classes. So first showing my interest in your research, which I was genuinely interested in because I'm interested in neuroscience, neurodegeneration. And then in classes, like actively asking questions, showing that I'm interested, showing that I'm a dedicated and diligent student. I think those things were important. As it relates to approaching a person, you won't approach, I don't think it's a good idea to approach someone who doesn't know you. Or let's say if you want to ask in advance and then get to know the person, that might be okay. But usually for me, I think it's better to be more organic. So let's say you want a letter of rec from your organic chemistry professor, right? You have to make yourself known. So in classes, ensure that you ask questions. And well, getting good grades is all part of the formula, but put yourself out there so that person recognizes you and recognizes your good qualities, because those are the things that they're going to write about in the letter of recommendation. I think one of the shorter things, so I also got letters of recommendation from the research mentors I did research with over the summer. So I think for me, I'm really talkative, as you might notice. So I think that helps too. And I'm always asking them questions and just being like a good person in general and being respectful. I think those in combination will help you to get a good letter of recommendation. But I think the most important thing is that you have to start establishing the relationship before you need the letter of recommendation.
Thank you. Those are truly the wise words from someone who has learned how to do it right. So do we have any other questions from people?
I just have a comment. I loved your presentation, and you make it look very easy, very well organized. And I remember, just for the sake of everybody, that there were moments in each of those years where you were unsure and the path was not quite as straight as you presented. But that's an important piece. In hindsight, you've captured everything that you personally did. And that's just an excellent presentation for all the students. We really thank you. We're so proud of you.
Thank you, Dr. Parker. Yes, you're right. I've been in your office several times. It wasn't as smooth, but eventually the end is.
It was forward, right? It was forward, but not necessarily smooth.
It's a zigzag, right? Never a straight line. Well, thank you so much. As you can see that, everyone loved your talk. And so if you guys don't mind, please join me with a round of virtual clap. You can do so also with that reaction buttons that we often do these days.
Oh, yes.
Well, thank you very much. Once again, I hope my talk was meaningful and it was beneficial to all the students who listened in. So if you have any other questions that you'd like to ask me personally, here's my email. I can type it in the chat so you can copy it, and I'll be really happy to help you in any way I can. It's with your application, just general advice.
Well, thank you very much. That's a very generous offer. So please take time to either write this down or take a snapshot of this. And you're really looking at someone who has done this in a, the manner or the timeline that turned out really be ideal for her career. So it's, someone who's willing to help us, and I really appreciate you, Takese, for taking your time here and then speak to all of us. So we wish you the best in your graduate school.
Thank you. Let me stop sharing.
So that's it, everyone. If you have to go, please feel free to log out. And we want to thank you for coming to the Natural Science Colloquium Series. So as you know that in addition to all the research talks, sometimes we do have a career talks given by former alumnus and the students who have really done it in the past. So I appreciate you coming and thank you for all your support to this wonderful series. See you later, Takese.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.